Good morning again. I want to start with a story that probably many of you are familiar with, but it's good to be reminded every once in a while. There was a mother hen who was sitting on her nest incubating her eggs, and this one particular time she had left the nest just to get some food and came back, and she noticed that one of the eggs looked a little odd compared to the rest of them, but she said, well, it's in my nest, it must have come from me, it must be my egg. And so she continued to sit with the eggs and incubate them all. And over time, they all became chicks and opened up, and little chicks emerged from them. And she noticed that the one chick from this other egg was different than the others. A little bit awkward, a little bit ungainly. And she said, but it must be mine. So she just loved all of them together. And so over time, she guided them in learning how to cluck and pick up food, peck for food and run around the barnyard and all that. And so they got this, they all learned this together. And she noticed that as they grew, this one particular chick seemed to be a little bit awkward, and a little bit ungainly, and actually larger than the other chicks. And I know that James and I and Cynthia were recently at the teen camp, and one of the things that most of the teens said is, I don't feel like I fit in to where I normally live. And they're larger, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, oftentimes larger than the chicks around them. And so it's that awkwardness, and yet the mother loved them all. And one day after quite a while, when they kind of matured a little bit more, they were suddenly saw this shadow pass overhead, and this large bird came flying down into the barnyard and landed in the barnyard, and they all went running because they recognized this is a bird of prey, this is a predator, get the heck into safety, right? And the bird grabbed the largest of the chicks and pulled it out and said, what are you doing? And the chick said, I'm running around eating food, pecking, and being a good chicken. What am I supposed to be doing? He says, you're an eagle. You're like me. Look at the coloring, you're an eagle. What are you doing running around like a chicken? And the baby eagle tried to convince him, no, I've always been this way. I was raised this way. I was born this way. I'm a chicken. Don't you know? And the eagle said, no, you've always been an eagle. You've just forgotten and were never told that you're an eagle. Today we're going to take a look at our eagleness, because you and I are eagles. And sometimes, if you're like me, we forget and we think we're chickens. When Jesus kind of slapped his fellow people up alongside the head of his day and said, don't you remember in your scriptures that it says you're gods? Yeah. Remember that part? No, you're not that you're gods. And it says that back in the Psalms, and he's reminding them, hey, wake up. You're acting like chickens, but you're actually eagles. You're acting like you don't know what you're doing, but you're really gods. Your individualized expression of the one. So today we're going to take a look at the fourth chapter of that four-chapter opening to the Science of Mind textbook. We've looked at the thing itself. We've looked at how it works. We've looked at what it does. And today we turn it from a different perspective and we say, and how can I use that? See, the first three chapters were about it, right? What it does, what it is, how it works. And if you're working with something with an infinite power, it's good to know what it is and how it works, right? If you're working with electricity, the first thing you want to know is, how does it work? What is it? What is its nature so that I can use it? But eventually we have to come around to, and how do I use it? Ernest Holmes says, as we learn and practice our philosophy, the science of mind, we live principle-centered, spirit-led lives and turn to our principles for guidance in all moments and all areas of our lives. We let these principles, we let this truth guide us in all areas, every moment of our lives. These are the values by which we live. We don't believe in living as victims, do we? We don't believe in living as victims. We don't believe that life just happens to us. And if you're like me, sometimes you forget that and it's just, life is just happening to me, okay? But we know that that's not the truth. And so we know that we co-create with an infinite presence. We get to play with the infinite presence of the universe. Isn't that cool? Amen. We get to play with that. And that this infinite presence is for us because we're part of it. It's for itself, really, but since we're part of it, it's for us. Since we're expressions of an infinite, this presence is in favor of us. It's biased towards us because we are it in form. Ernest says one of the great difficulties is that we are likely to indulge in too much theory and too little practice. We only know as much as we can prove by demonstration. So it's not enough to just know about it. It's not enough to just hear about the truth. We have to live it. Do I practice it? Do I live it? Do I put it into action? Again, he says it's easy enough to rush about shouting that there are no sick people, but this will never heal those who appear to be sick. It is easy to proclaim that there are no needy. Anyone can say this. If we are to prove such statements to be facts, we shall be compelled to do more than announce a principle, no matter how true it may be. So it's not enough to just know the principle. We also have to apply it and learn how to apply it. And that's what we're looking at today. So by conscious thinking, we give Spirit direction. We give this infinite power direction by our choice, by our saying, this is where we want to individualize it. We want to do a Super Bowl. We want to provide soup for those who appear needy. So we say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to manifest this. The infinite must flow through us in order to manifest for us. We've been talking about this for the last couple of chapters. It can only do for us what it can do through us. How much am I going to open up to it? And can I direct it? And will I consciously direct it? So what I focus on, how I direct it, is what I focus on is what shows up in my life. That's what I call the good news, bad news of this teaching. How I emotionalize it adds the creative energy. The emotional energy. It's not enough to just think something, but do I add emotion to it? And what am I adding emotion to? I remember listening to a movie director talk about, I can take a film of people walking through a park or a beautiful wooded scene, and I can play lovely, sweet music behind it, or I can play sinister, dark music behind it. It's still the same theme, but we have an expectation and give it meaning of something different, right? Because of the music playing behind it. The music playing behind it in our lives is the meaning and the emotion that we add to what's happening in front of us. Is it sinister or is it beautiful? We add and we get to decide. So we emotionalize it. And emotions come down to one of two emotions: love, which is what God is, or fear, which is simply the absence or the forgetting of love, and the belief that love is not present. Both of them will add power to our manifestation. Both of them will add power. So if I move with fear, I can manifest more fear and more things to be afraid of, as much as if I move with love, I get to manifest what it is that is a greater and greater expression of love. And I love how Laurie talked about that we manifest grace by focusing on grace. We manifest that by focusing on what we want. Ernest says when we are dealing with real life, that's the capital L life, with thoughts, impulses, emotions, etc., we are dealing with causation, with original cause, and we should be most careful how we deal with such thoughts and forces. If you're handling a live wire and electricity, right, you're pretty paying attention and pretty careful, because you recognize that mishandling that, how do I say this, can cause an unpleasant experience, right? It's the same thing with this creative energy of the universe. Am I handling it with care, with attention, paying attention? The Zen monk, the Zen teacher, who was asked by his student, what's the first step of, or what's the secret of enlightenment? He said, attention. And the student said, well, yes, I know the first step is attention. What comes after that? And he says, the first step is attention. The second step is attention. The 100th step is attention. Are we paying attention to our thought? Are we paying attention to what it is that we are placing in front of the screen of our mind and telling the universe, this is what I want to have show up? Michael Beckwith reminds us it's not what we wish for, it's what we're interested in. It's what the universe says, oh, that must be what that person wants. What am I interested in by repeatedly showing that in front of my mind? So spirit takes on and releases form. Spirit becomes form, and then when it's finished by whatever process, it stops being that form. The Hindus say that all arises and falls. All that has a beginning must come to an end, and all that comes to an end must have a new beginning. And so spirit rises and falls in the form. We take part of that. No form is permanent. No form, no way that spirit shows up is permanent. Spirit is permanent, but the how it shows up is not permanent. Everything has a life cycle, whether it's 5 seconds or whether it's hundreds or thousands of years. All of it changes completely. The form changes. So we should not be confused by any form. Any form which is not of the original harmony and nature of spirit must change. And he reminds us of that because sometimes we get so wrapped up into and believe in the solidity of a form, of something out there that we think that's real. I remember a friend of mine was working with the IRS, and in her mind, the IRS was a big, monolithic, real thing. And when she finally got that, no, this is human beings, this is just God, this is just a form of God, the relationship completely shifted and changed, which saved her a lot of money, okay, and had a whole different experience. Any form which is not of the original harmony and nature of spirit must change. Spirit's nature is continuously seeking to express. You know, you think of a flower that's trying to grow through concrete. We've all seen that, right? You know, you concrete over something and the flower or maybe the root from the tree or something shows up anyways. Because life is like that. It goes through anything. Life will continuously express. And if we open up to spirit, no matter what the outer conditions may look like, as long as we can open to that life, create any opening at all, that life will express in our lives through us. We hold that in consciousness. Ernest reminds us that trained thought is far more powerful than untrained thought. Trained thought. Do I have control and direction with my mind and with my emotions? Am I clearly going in the direction that I want to go? Am I clearly putting that as the picture that I put in front of the screen of my mind, in front of the projector of my mind? And so as we take control of our thoughts and feelings, as we bring them into alignment with spirit, the seemingly discordant facts start to shift, start to change. And we can look them in the face and say, you're not real. You have no existence, you have no power other than what I give you in my consciousness. And I can change my consciousness. I can change my consciousness. And that is our work. Any discordant facts come from fear. They come from forgetting our true spiritual nature. And spirit doesn't care because it doesn't have to do battle with discordant facts. Just like light doesn't have to do battle with darkness. It just becomes or expresses its nature of light. And the darkness, which is simply the absence of light, disappears. Where we have a lack of truth, of spiritual truth, of the true spiritual nature of God, which is always for life, which is always for love, which is always for light and beauty and power and peace and joy. When we have a lack of that, all we have to do is tie into that and open to that. And that is what has to start to express. Emmett Fox, who was a great New Thought writer in the early part of the last century, said, all we have to do when we're confronted with a problem is focus on God instead. Instead of focusing on a problem, focus on God instead. Because the nature of God is what we want to have expressed wherever we experience a problem, because a problem is simply an experience of being out of alignment with the infinite presence. We do this by practice. We do this by doing it, and then watching the results from that. So thought directs and applies the law. We can look a thing in the face and say, this is not truth. This is what we call denials in New Thought. Denial is not the psychological condition of, this doesn't really exist. Yes, it exists, but it's not the truth, and it doesn't need to continue to exist. So we look at it and we say, this is not the truth. The truth is this, and this is what I choose to put my attention on. This is where I put my focus on, and allow that to manifest through me. I align with that spiritual nature into expressing truth. And this immediately starts the law in working in the direction that we choose. And so that truth demonstrates instantaneously. Now, sometimes we don't experience it as demonstrating instantaneously, right? It doesn't seem in our mind to be instantaneous. First of all, I'm reminded of again, another Michael Beckwithism. Tomorrow is just more of God's today. Okay? So Spirit is constantly knowing that. So the truth of Spirit always exists. It is already manifest now. Our health, our wholeness, our joy, our abundance, our love, all of it already exists. It's here right now. We don't have to conjure it up from somewhere and bring it from out over there to over here, right? It's right here, right now. It's within you and me, right now. Okay? And all we're doing is tapping into what's already here that we just forgot about. We're changing our consciousness, we're changing our focus, we're changing our mind. And so it only takes as much time as is inherent in the logical and sequential expression of life. Okay? Sometimes it takes, especially, I remember years ago when I wanted a relationship with a person and I got the message that person wasn't ready. I was ready, but that person wasn't yet. Okay, so we have to wait for the logical and sequential expression, but the truth was the relationship was already so in the mind of God and did manifest in the correct and proper time. So we have to allow that process, but the truth is already so in our minds. And since it takes place in our mind, it shows up as we allow our thoughts to be fully aligned with truth. Ernest says, is one of my favorite quotes of his, there is no process of healing, but there is generally a process in healing. There's no process of healing because we're already whole, perfect, and complete. We don't need a process of healing. But there's a process in remembering that and allowing that to show up in my body and in my circumstances, whatever healing is. There's a process, and it's the time and effort it takes me to fully undergo realizing the truth. It's the time and effort it takes me to get all my ducks in a row, chickens in a row, to align perfectly with knowing this truth and allowing it to move forward and to manifest. And so Ernest says we must meditate and mentally treat daily. Yeah. There we go. I'm going to turn this off just so it doesn't accidentally come back on. So what I was just saying was we must meditate and mentally treat daily until the desired manifestation shows up. And what I look at this as is the conditioning and the nourishment of the soil of our mind to where we build a creative medium that totally supports the manifestation of what it is that we're creating. We condition the soil. For those of you who are familiar with the Science Mind teaching symbol, there's that middle layer, which is the layer of creativity. We condition that soil. We condition that layer until it is in full alignment with the highest and greatest good. We clean out the weeds. We plant the plants we want consciously. And we should treat until we get results. That's what he says. We treat until we get results. We work with expectancy, not with anxiety or coercion. If we work with anxiety and coercion, it just colors the whole thing, and that's what we get more of, is more anxiety and more coercion, even if we demonstrate what it is that we think we want on the surface. So he says, perfect belief is the beginning and the end of all good mental work. Perfect belief is the beginning and end, the alpha and the omega of all mental work. Can I develop in myself that I absolutely believe and know that this that I'm claiming is I am using an immutable law, an infinite power, and aligning with that and directing it, and it must happen to the same belief that I have that when I flip on the light switch, it's going to work. As we do our mental work, we leave it to the law to then manifest it in the perfect way. So this week I invite us to practice trained thinking toward a desired outcome, to practice this. The great philosopher Jon Stewart, those of you who don't know him, he is a former Comedy Central personality, said, if you don't stick to your values when they're being tested, they're not values, they're hobbies. If you don't stick to your values when they're being tested, they're not values, they're hobbies. And so we're invited to take these principles, these values that we have created, and stick to them even when it's tough, even when it looks difficult. And so this week, practice trained thinking towards a desired outcome. Pick something in your life that you would like to experience a greater demonstration, a greater experience of the true nature of Spirit in. Train your thinking, focus on what it is that you choose to experience. Let go of the fear, let go of the worry, let go of the judgments and the criticisms, and focus on that, contemplate that instead. Contemplate God in that particular area of your life and see what happens. Play with it, experience it. I want to close with a quote from Ernest towards the end of this whole chapter. He says, "A new light is coming into the world. We are on the borderland of a new experience. The veil between spirit and nature is very thin. The invisible passes into visibility through our faith in it. A new science, a new religion, and a new philosophy are rapidly being developed. This is in line with the evolution of the great presence, and nothing can hinder its progress. Nothing can hinder its progress." You and I are playing on the edge of this. You and I are playing on the edge of this right now. He goes on to say, true thought deals directly with first cause, and this science is the study of first cause, spirit, or truth, that invisible essence, that ultimate stuff and intelligence from which everything comes, the power back of creation, the thing itself. That is what we're playing with, is our study and our application of that essence. We are becoming open vessels to allow that to move through us in every way, in our own personal lives and clear in anywhere in the world. We are becoming open vessels. Join me in prayer. As we turn within and we turn our awareness to that infinite presence, to that one love, to that one life, that one light, to that highest and greatest good, that is constantly changing forms and yet is ever the same. Its nature never changes. Forms arise and fall. Its nature never changes. And we are one of it. We always have been, we are right now, and we always will be one of that infinite presence. We are points of consciousness, points of choice, points of evolution, as that one expresses its nature in this world. We are that. Whether we remember it, whether we forget it, whether we are aware or unaware of it, we are that. And so I declare and I speak my word, that we wake up to this here and now more fully than ever before, that we manifest greater good than we have ever experienced, expressed, or even imagined before, right here, right now, this week in our lives, that we say yes to the flow of Spirit in the most beautiful, peaceful, loving, powerful ways. We say yes to that nature. We stand in this truth, we stand in this awareness that we are gods, we are eagles, we are that which creates. And take responsibility for that, letting all the doubt, letting all the judgment, letting all the worry about what others are doing or might be thinking fall away and stand in truth. I am that I am. I am that. Each of us is that. And in gratitude, because as we become aware of that, we create, we replicate, we allow heaven as earth, earth as heaven, to be made manifest. And so I release this process into that which we call the law, the process, the knowing how it's done, and let it do its work. We simply hold the vision, know the vision is true, we stand in that truth, and it is so, and so it is. Thank you.